Good afternoon, everyone. This is your host, Rashad Woods of the T.R.O.N podcast, The Randomness of Nothing. Today, we have a very special guest today. He's a ghostwriting, best-selling author, kind of a Swiss Army knife and a master of all things when it comes to technology, AI, and really get a chance to be interesting to pick his brain for a few, Mr. Richard Lowe. Thank you.
How you doing?
Good,
Thanks for the
good.
great
Really
introduction.
appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit about, particularly when it comes to ghostwriting. I have a couple different questions. I'm really fascinated by how you got into the career of authorship after you transitioned from technology, being the director over at Trader Joe's for 20 years.
Well, I was in tech for 33 years. Trader Joe's was 20 years of that.
Right.
I started out as just a coder, assembly language coder, very low level in the machine, on computers over the size of a room with less power than one chip on your smartphone.
Right.
And worked my way up to be VP of one company, and then moved to another company, was VP of that company. And then we went to Trader Joe's, director of computer operations, and was in charge of everything, cybersecurity, disaster recovery,
Right.
basically anything anybody else didn't want to do. Lots and lots of things. I had a whole staff. And then one day I was looking around thinking, I don't want to work for anybody anymore.
Right.
So I left my job, moved to Florida,
Right.
because it was as far away from California as I could get.
Uh-huh.
And then started my my ghostwriting career. And it got off to a good start. And I've never looked back. So I've been doing it now for 11 years. In that time, I've written well over 100 books, 60 of them for me, 52 as ghostwritten. And it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. So a couple questions I had for you is, how did you have a background in computer science before you got into computers? Because, obviously they're very prevalent now, but to have that skill set with such a unique unicorn to be in technology, did you do any computer science or programming at an early age?
No, I was a geology major.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I remember back then they didn't have personal computers.
Right.
All we had was calculators that were awful. They used something called reverse Polish notation. You'd have to type 3 characters for every character. Everything. It was awful.
Gosh.
It was horrible. So there was no interest at all in computers. But I took a computer science class because I was late.
Right.
And there's only one thing that could fit into the slot.
Oh,
so
wow.
I figured, whatever.
Yeah.
And my teacher started a company.
Okay.
And he asked me to come on board. And I was his first employee. And
that's dope. That's really cool. What college was that?
San Bernardino Valley College in the beautiful city of San Bernardino, California.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
That was sarcasm.
I couldn't tell, I couldn't tell. So I'll take it. My apologies for not catching the inside joke on that. I do have a quick question. So as you transition to ghostwriting, I thought it's fascinating because that's really where you found your voice. And that's what this show is all about when it comes to people who found that niche or that specialty that they're great at. How did you end up first getting into writing?
Well, when I was 17 years old, Wayback Machine, I wanted to know my grandfather better. So I started talking to him. Then I realized there was a book there. So I wrote my very first book. And it was about his adventures in the Yangtze River Patrol before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was on the Philippines, got captured on Corregidor, was in the Bataan Death March.
Oh, wow.
And spent 4 years in a Japanese POW camp. And I realized I was talking to a hero.
Wow.
And nobody knew.
Yeah.
And I found his story, and it touched me, and I got to know my grandfather. And that book has since been lost. It was never published, but it was fun to write.
Right.
But then I had to make a living, move out from home, get married, the whole thing.
Right.
So I went into tech and made a career and made some money. But a few years ago, I was like, okay, I'm done with all that.
Right.
I could just go off on my own.
And then, so you really didn't have like a coach then, like that taught you how to write. Like, do you recommend, like, obviously you do that for people. Did anybody guide you along the way when it came to learning how to write?
Nope. I did it all on my own.
That's
Took a
amazing.
few classes, but I've been writing technical stuff through that whole time for business, for the job I was in.
Right.
And articles for some magazines and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I was picking up the chops of writing.
Right.
But that first few books were a struggle.
It's funny because I think, the common misconception is that you talk a lot, you think a lot, so it must be easy to write it, right? I'm sure, I don't want to assume, but people, it's not nearly as easy as people make it out to be when it comes to actually formulating thoughts, characters, development, transitional sentences. Do you have any particular writing process that you follow?
Well, when I ghostwrite, the first thing I do is I try and find out more about the client, the author. And then I want to find out about the audience. So we spend a lot of time talking to try and get under that. So I want to make a book that people are actually going to want to read and they're going to want to buy.
Right.
And if you don't do that, you're going to have a book that's going to sit on your coffee table and maybe sell 5 copies. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
For sure.
But if you want to sell a lot of copies, you need to know who your market is.
Right.
So we start with basically a marketing pass. Who's going to buy it? Why are they going to buy it? What are they going to get from it?
Right.
And then we go through the book and we want to find out for each chapter, and then finally at the end, what emotion the reader wants to feel. You want the reader to feel at the end of that chapter or the book.
Right.
So you want the reader to be angry, like maybe a political book, you're trying to get elected, you might want to be angry. A comedy book, you might want to be happy.
Right.
Children's book, you want to be uplifted. There's an emotion at the end, and that's far more critical than the information. The information is important also, but it's more important that you put them on this emotional ride through the book. There's ups, there's downs. You've seen a movie, there's ups, there's downs.
Of course.
There's you're like on the edge of your seat. Well, you do the same thing in a book.
Right.
And the emotion is what keeps people in the book, not anything else.
Right. So essentially it's almost, people try to get these large, grandiose ideas, but are you conveying an emotion to get somebody to stay captivated, involved, and emotionally involved with the topic that's being written on, excuse me.
Right. And there's a kind of a rule in writing that most writers don't follow because it's hard. It's really hard. It's called show versus tell. So get a little technical here, but telling is like, he's angry.
Right.
Well, that's kind of boring. It's not, it doesn't really convey the emotion very well. But instead, you show the emotion by showing his features, and maybe somebody else mention it, sweating, eyes popped out, fingers clenched, So you show it. You never tell the reader he's angry. The reader picks it up. And then there's another thing called subtext, where you have this conversation going on, but the conversation actually has some undertones.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to do especially for beginner writers.
Right.
The subtext is you watch Dune, there's subtext all over the place, the movie. Good movies and good writing has a lot of subtext and a lot of show.
Right.
The problem with show is it takes a lot of room to write.
Okay.
So you got to use it judiciously. It's not all show. Sometimes you just want to get from here to there. Say, okay, he walked that far,
Right.
But then you want to, if you got to take your time, well, he meandered up this path and he tripped and he smelled the flowers.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
And that's important in a nonfiction book too. You want to show them the information, not tell them the information so much. So you don't have a big table. You might have a big table, but instead you might walk them through some examples, some quotes, some real life case studies,
right.
And then they get the idea much better.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that was going to be my next question, the entertainment versus gathering knowledge, because I think somebody, and I'm not making a broad statement here, but I'm like, okay, if I'm reading a particular book for my enjoyment and it's engrossing to me on an entertainment level or an emotional level, I have a different set of feelings or expectations I would versus if I was reading a technical book, where maybe because it's a process-driven situation, I could understand that it may not need to convey as many emotions to me, but you made a great point that people are visual and that they need to see certain things taking place. Now, you've written a lot of computer and AI books. Can you give us some examples?
Well, in a computer book or an AI book, they're written by people who are experts in the field, usually C-level,
right,
who wanted to convey their message to other leaders.
Right.
So they didn't get into the bits and bytes and how AI works.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they're getting into more of the business, like AI will have this return on investment.
The ROI.
You need to go here. You need to do this. This is a gotcha. Worry about that. Find out your market, blah, blah, blah. So it's more about the leadership aspects of AI
mm-hmm.
and how your company can prosper with it or not,
right,
versus getting into the technical, how does blockchain work or how does the metaverse work? That's
sure.
a different. I don't tend to write technical manuals. That's a whole different thing. And that is where you just basically tell people. That's one of the big differences. In a technical manual, you're just saying it.
Right. And putting it, verbatim, exactly line by line.
And that's why they're so boring.
Yeah. It's like how to change a tire book. Yeah. They're not going to give you, the ups and downs of doing it. It's just going to be like, you need to proceed to the next step.
Unscrew this bolt, put it here.
So when and this is going to sound, when people think of ghostwriting, they think that the person who created the idea may have not been original, so to speak. So, it's kind of, whether you hear it in music or whether you hear it in a movie script, oh, they had a ghostwriter. What's the concept? What's the perception of having a ghostwriter, of somebody who has an idea? And is that accurate of what I'm looking at?
It's accurate for lower level ghostwriters.
Okay.
For higher level ghostwriters, people in my premier ghostwriters, people around where I'm at,
Right.
and me, what I do is I interview my client and I get into his heart and soul.
Right.
And what I want to do is convey that in the book. I want to convey their heart. I want to convey what they really think. I want to convey their experiences, their knowledge, their why they're doing it. I mean, really what makes them tick in that book, depending on the book.
Right.
And not so much, and that's the difference. Because of that, it is them in the book. I'm writing the book as if I were them. I'm almost method acting in a way about their stuff.
Okay.
So it becomes their book.
Right.
There's a lot of books out there that you might read, and that's true, especially when you get to like the celebrity ghostwriters who are very high end and get paid a lot.
Right.
Their books are written from the point of view of the celebrity, and they do a pretty good job usually of conveying the celebrity's life and times and stuff like that. I've done 2 celebrity books so far. One, both rock stars, and they're interesting.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it just becomes, and this is again and this is me looking from the outside in, which is why I find this so fascinating. Does it get into an issue of credit? Obviously your clients are your clients. I'm not going to ask any specific examples, but just in general, when it comes to like the industry of ghostwriting, and then somebody's doing a book, and then somebody from the back end who is a professional who does this for a living, does credit ever become a problem when it comes to ghostwriting?
Well, you may need to have a good contract, agreement, statement of work, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And that will outline that.
Okay.
Typically, when you start getting into celebrity ghostwriters, they're usually journalists, and they usually putting their name on the cover so they get credit. Means you'll make extra sales because they know who that journalist is.
Got it.
People who haven't been a journalist, haven't won Pulitzer Prizes, their name probably won't be on the cover. I don't want my name on the cover necessarily. I mean, I'd like it. It gives me something that I can promote.
Of course.
But I'm getting paid.
It's not the end all, right? Right.
So that's not my goal. None of my 52 clients for books have ever put my name on the cover. Sometimes they put it in the acknowledgments.
For sure.
But that's fine with me. It is what they want. And my goal is it's like you hire a contractor to build a house. You probably don't stamp his name on the house.
Exactly.
Unless he's Frank Lloyd Wright,
Okay.
he's still alive.
Right.
He's famous architect. You probably stamp his name on the house.
Right. It's kind of like you're like the stunt double, right? Like, and I say that very respectfully because I enjoy action movies, and stunt performers, do a lot of great things, and you see wonderful motion pictures, but it's also some things that, the actor can't/won't do. And it's better suited to have a double, but you still see a great finalized product as a consumer or as a customer. So
right. You pretty much hit it on the head. Yeah, I do. Basically, my role is to do the writing and to translate their image, their thoughts, their whatever, their emotions into written form. That's awesome. Sometimes that involves a lot of brainstorming. So I also take on the hat of coaching and brainstorming as we're going through this. Sometimes they may not have an idea that will really sell or resonate with the public. So I have to help them, guide them to something that will. So that's part of my role too.
Obviously, you're heavily into technology, even though you've transitioned to your writing career. But you still,
Correct.
When it comes to artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, things of current technology and modern things that are being utilized on a day-by-day basis now, as opposed to in a small vacuum or at a certain location. What's your take on the new artificial intelligence and cybersecurity trends that have been taking place?
We lost sound.
I'm sorry. I was just asking about the modern use of artificial intelligence and modern cybersecurity that has been taking place. What's your take?
You mean as far as writing or just in general?
Just in general. Writing as well, too.
Well, artificial intelligence is obviously moving forward very quickly, and it's still in its infancy. It's actually in something that's quite well known in the technical area, which is called the hype cycle.
Right.
So basically, this new idea comes out, it catches on. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon, especially investors jump on the bandwagon, and you can see this cycle goes way up in value and all this kind of stuff. And then of course, it doesn't live to the hype. So it goes kaboom,
Right.
falls to the ground almost to zero, and then it comes back up to where it's supposed to be, and then it's back to a normal, and people are more sane with it. So AI is kind of near the peak of that hype cycle. Don't know how close to the peak it is, but it will crash because it's not. It's the hype is, oh, it's going to be as smart as human beings, blah blah blah, take over the world. No, it's not. And as soon as people figure that out, investment's going to pull out and go to something else.
Right.
And that doesn't mean AI is going away. That just means that it's going to come down to a more sane, normal, and then something else will take over.
Right.
Same cybersecurity. Well, right now there's several wars going on, and we do have wars going on with Iran and Russia and a few other countries, North Korea, and they are actively attacking the United States companies and government and infrastructure.
Correct.
And that is producing the area where AI could really help, because it can help. I mean, the amount of data that's generated to protect you is incredible, and AI can help filter all that and say, oh yeah, there's an attack here, but these others you can ignore. And
it's funny you say that. I'll never forget, about 10 years ago, I got an email saying, like, your Netflix may have been compromised by a password. And it's one of those emails I just flippantly ignored, right? And this is kind of spooky. I had a Fire Stick, Amazon Fire Stick at the time, and the menu on my TV kept moving when I was clicking stuff, and it was randomly clicking separate apps. And just a week before that, it was telling me, hey, you may want to change your passcode. These are the countries that could have hacked it. And one of them was, Russia, or, of the countries that you mentioned. And as soon as I changed my password, that stopped. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I'm like, wow, that it was controlling my TV. It was out of body experience.
Yeah, hackers can get into your computer, TV,
Right.
and smart TVs are computers,
right,
or your phone, or anything else, and do that kind of thing.
It blew my mind. So also, on the line of ghostwriting, and obviously we talked about our artificial intelligence, and you can probably see what I'm segueing to. What has artificial intelligence done to your profession?
What artificial intelligence used correctly in writing and any creative venue is you use it as a digital assistant.
Right.
So you use it to help you automate and do those things that a human being doesn't need to do. Spell checking, for example, or as a research assistant, help me find out about this. Or as one thing I do is I'll put in a chapter of it, and I say, is there any redundancies in here? And it'll tell me, oh, you're redundant here and here and here. And I say, okay, good, and I'll go fix those. I don't write with it,
right? Because
AI is incredibly boring because it has no emotions. It's not a person.
Correct.
So its writing is very, very boring. I can tell an AI generated thing within seconds. Oh, that's written by AI.
Story right away.
I've seen it so much. It's easy to spot, and it's boring. And one of the things it's a term that's in robotics is called the uncanny valley.
Mm-hmm.
An uncanny valley means you look at, in this case, robots, and it looks human, but there's something your mind is going, this doesn't look quite right. And it could be as simple as there's no hair on it, or the hairs are wrong, or something. Right. Well, it applies to other things too. For example, in movies, when you watch a movie, especially Marvel movies now, the CGI can throw you off.
No doubt.
And you don't know what it is. Something about this movie's wrong. Like Rings of Power has a famous example where the boat's going through and it's not going up and down. It's on the ocean, but the background is stable.
Right.
So that's your mind probably won't pick that up consciously.
No.
But unconsciously is going, that's wrong.
Right. Right.
And that appears in writing too. You're reading this thing and you're going, this doesn't read quite right. Uncanny valley.
Got it.
So I haven't really heard that term applied to writing very much, but the basic concept is something's off about it, and your mind figures it out, but it doesn't consciously seep up until you sit down and really look. Right. And then you look at the movie and you see that, oh, the shadows are pointing wrong. Right. Well,
something
like that.
I've watched Foundation on Apple TV, and if you can't tell that CGI, that there's really not a place of, infinite sand and massive buildings where, ships are coming down in, or Dune, circa Dune. But it's those subtle things, like you said, like a boat, right? Because it's so subtle. There must be on water. It's like they're really on a set that's about, 30 feet, 40 feet wide with a green screen in the background.
Right. It's all green screen now.
Right.
And yeah, Uncanny Valley is a big thing. And it's really, really hard. People don't understand that it's there, and they don't think about it. The producers, the set builders and things, they probably didn't even think, oh, this boat's on water, it should be moving up and down,
Right.
as the water moves.
Exactly. No, it should stay
Of course, what you see on the screen is the background should be moving up and down a little bit.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Well, that's not how water works.
So I'm curious, do you ever have to turn people down either because of subject matter, interest, or any other reason as well too when it comes to ghostwriting opportunities?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I turned down revenge memoirs generally, where that's where, say, the wife wants to get revenge on the husband that she divorced. So those have legal reasons why I won't do them,
For sure.
obviously, and they're not fun to write.
Of course not.
I had one potential client come to me. He offered me a lot of money. It was very early in my career, to write a book that he wanted to expose. He was a confidential informant for one of the agencies, probably the FBI, embedded deep into the mafia, and he wanted to expose everybody on every side with real names. I was like, he said, I'll give you like $100,000 to write this. I said, yeah, I'm not going to be able to spin that from inside of a grave.
Right.
Well, I'll protect you. It's like, you're coming to me you want me to help you expose all these people.
Correct.
And you expect me to believe that you're going to keep my name secret?
Wow. That it's crazy. So basically he almost asked you to do like a Goodfellas kind of a situation, right?
So I said, no, thank you. Well, 100, 150. No, thank you. Go find somebody else. I think he would have gone higher, but I wasn't going to touch it.
And that was a smart move on your end. You'd rather just stay to, your safety. You can't put a price on that.
Well, I was hungry back then, and I definitely would have liked that project, but
yeah,
no. And there's the occasional person who's just, well, like a Karen,
right.
Right. Who's just somebody who's not easy to deal with. One thing I stress to all my clients is both of us need to be the adults in the room.
Absolutely.
And if I say something dumb or you don't like what I'm writing or whatever's wrong, tell me. I'm an adult.
Right.
Right. If there's some, I expect you to come back and basically mark up the writing, and I want you to do it. And if you need to mark it all up so that there's blood dripping from it, basically, do that. I heard a story of one person who came to me. I did wind up hiring him. Excuse me. He hired me. He came to me and he dropped the old ghostwriter because he handed the ghostwriter all of the changes, and the ghostwriter actually broke down crying.
Wow.
Like, it was his masterpiece or something. It's like,
oh my goodness.
And the reality is, he's not criticizing the ghostwriter. He's criticizing the work.
Right.
It's not what he wanted.
Right. So, oh my goodness. So he did the
ghostwriter lost the business. And
oh jeez. Well, wow.
And I got the business, so I was happy.
So
I'm not going to break down crying because you put red marks on my work. That's part of the process. Exactly.
Do you have a challenge of getting personal information out of people? Because I'm sure there's some very deeply embedded, either traumatic or personal items, relationship, family, etc. What type of care is involved with situations like that when somebody wants to tell their full story, either inspirationally or circa biography kind of a deal?
Never had anybody who has any problem telling me stuff yet.
Okay.
We have a non-disclosure agreement, and I treat it very seriously because obviously it's my business. And usually the problem is they talk too much.
Of course.
And I have to limit the meetings to an hour. Okay, we're getting close to the hour, but I'm not done. We'll have another meeting later. But so I try and guide the person in to talk about what we need to talk about, because people like to talk. Like, these are things they've never told people before sometimes.
Got it.
And
how does I'm sorry, I apologize.
Go ahead. Sorry, that's fine.
Yeah, because I've seen some books, like Kevin Trudeau got legal action taken against him because he promoted certain items that weren't true, and he kept doing it. So what's the legality of books when it comes to what you can do, what you can't do? Like, whether it's proven medicine, that area seems a little unclear to me.
Well, just think of it take the book out of the picture. So if you were, say, writing a book about some vitamins that cure cancer, you better be able to prove it, because the FDA is going to come down on top,
Okay.
FDA, FTC is going to come down hard on you.
Okay.
If you're slandering somebody, then that could be a civil lawsuit. Just so if you take the book out of it and put it into the real world, the same thing could happen to the author.
Okay.
It typically, I've never heard of a case where it comes back. Well, I've heard of one case where it comes back to the ghostwriter, and that was the celebrity ghostwriter.
Oh, wow.
Who basically made stuff up. And obviously the client didn't read the book.
You think that would happen?
Obvious. It's like if the ghostwriter was able to get away with it, that means the client didn't read the book.
Correct. They were just they were more with the book with your name on it.
The general thumb is you just need to use your common sense as a ghostwriter. What is and isn't something you could say, and
right.
I use the real life example. Would I in real life believe or think that this vitamin can cure cancer? No.
Right.
I'm not an idiot. I mean, if you believe that, all power to you. But
right. No, we're on the same page. I just was curious what's the limits of true versus because when he got his legal action taken against him, I'm like, well, people do and say outrageous things and don't get penalized for it, but I understand when you're talking about a specific medicine or a specific cure for a specific item, that's where it can get really dicey.
They'll come to you and ask for proof.
Right.
How can you say that this, in a vitamin, you could probably say it helps. We believe that it helps reduce the risks associated with cancer.
Right.
But you got to be, there's language you use to make sure that you're covered.
Instead of him when he was trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, and I don't generally do those kind of books.
Okay.
I use my discretion, and I'm not going to write a book about something that's a scam or that's it's sketchy. It's just not me.
Well, I saw, a lot of the testimonials that people did for you and the services that you have to offer. Obviously, you don't need me to be located, but for people who would be listening, where can they find Richard Lowe?
You can go to thewritingking.com, that's THE, writingking.com, or ghostwriting.guru.
Okay.
Either one of those sites will bring you to, you'll find places to schedule a meeting all over those sites.
Awesome.
And then schedule some time to talk. Half an hour, an hour, whatever you need, and we'll talk. And you can do book coaching or ghostwriting book coachings where you do the work yourself. I coach you through it.
Right.
So if you want to write the book, but you need help. And ghostwriting is where I do the work.
Right.
And sometimes it's I do all the work, usually. And sometimes it's more collaborative. It depends on the client. So you can go to those two places. You can find me on LinkedIn, Richard Lowe Jr. Connect with me.
Let me ask you one final question. Has any movie studios or film studios, again, your clients are confidential, I'm not here to ask for, but has anybody ever from a entertainment avenue ever requested your services?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. That's not an area I've really pursued. I wouldn't mind.
Right.
But not something that I've been interested in. I don't have the connections.
Okay.
But if somebody out there wants me to write a movie script, call me up.
I'm just curious, right? Because with all the technical prowess and the things that you do, I thought that just piqued my curiosity.
I would love to write. I would love to go into that area. My understanding is it's super competitive.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I can only imagine. Yeah. But
probably I'd have to know somebody.
Oh, I'm sure. And if you were actively pursuing it, and like I said, it seems like your pond is, for lack of a better term, feeding you well. And so, but I could wish you continued success in whatever avenues you decide to dip your toe into. And this is what the T.R.O.N podcast is all about, talking to fascinating people such as yourself with compelling stories, ideas, and paths in life. And that's why I'm honored to have you carve out a little bit of your time for us.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Great podcast.
Appreciate you, Richard. You have a wonderful day, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.